Hey guys, so I just got back from a pre-screening of two movies, and I want to get these done with as quickly as soon as possible because I gotta get to bed because I gotta be at work pretty early in the morning. So let's get right into them. First movie I saw was Godzilla. Um, I've been looking forward to this movie immensely. This is the movie I've been looking forward to the most this summer, and probably the most this year. This was the movie that was going to make or break this summer for me, and I know I'm not the only one who's been looking forward to this movie immensely. I grew up a huge Godzilla fan, like a lot of people. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like the most hardcore Godzilla fan. I honestly haven't seen the original in years. But I remember being really good. I grew up. Uh, I remember being little, about 9 or 10, and being first introduced to Godzilla by going to the video store near me with my dad, and we used to always rent all these old horror movies. But at one point, I decided to start renting some old Godzilla movies, and from that point forward, I loved Godzilla. I really loved those films. They were cheesy as hell, but they were fun to watch. I still love them. Anytime I get a chance, I will go see. I'll watch another, or I will watch an old Godzilla movie. Um, and this movie looked like it was gonna be the remake that we've all been wanting for years, an American remake that we've all been wanting for years. Um, I remember being about 10 when the '98 remake came out, and really hating that movie and really being disappointed by that, especially since I was really looking forward to that movie. People almost forget that that movie was hyped up to death. And this movie, actually, this remake here that we're getting now has been hyped up to death, but not as nearly as bad as the '98 one was. And because of that, I was so hyped about that movie, and I really liked Godzilla. And I thought, cool, this is going to be a new Godzilla that I get to see in theaters. And then I saw it, and I was like, God, that movie sucked. The movie was really bad. But this movie looked like it was had its heart in the right place. Everything sold me on it, from the trailers to the first images of Godzilla. Everything. I even watched interviews with the director, Gareth Evans, who seemed to have a real passion for the original films, and he really wanted to do these movies justice. And I was really sold on this film, and really hyped. And I apologize to any of my coworkers, any of my family members, because for the past week I've been talking about nothing but Godzilla, and it's probably been driving them nuts. And I apologize. But like I said, I've been, just, you know, all week long I've been talking about Godzilla. Is it worth the hype? Yeah, it is. Honestly, this movie was a lot of fun. It is flawed. It is. It has a lot of the flaws that you've been hearing about. If you've read any of the reviews, I will say that. But honestly, I walked away like with a pretty big smile on my face and going, that was fun. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I did. I really did. And honestly, it was a movie. This is a movie that I was giddy throughout most of it because, and that's something saying something. I haven't been this giddy about him. I haven't been this giddy in a movie in a long fucking time. There was so much about this movie that was making me geek out like hell. And I'll get into those moments in a brief while. But, yeah, Godzilla is amazing in this movie. He is back to his glory, I guess it would be the word to say. He is the king of all monsters. They even say that at the end of the movie. Literally, there's a headline at the end of the movie that says, King of all monsters has saved our city, or something like that. It was like, alright, that was kind of cheesy, but it was... I liked it. Yeah, it was a headline on the news, but he kicks ass. He is back to his former glory. He is fucking awesome in this movie. He breathes fire. He Does everything that you loved about the original Godzilla. I mean, I know a lot of people were really, of all the things that people were mad about the most in the original remake, '98 remake, they seem to be more mad about him not breathing fire. And yes, he does breathe fire, like I said. Even his spikes glow, like in the original films when he breathes fire. And I thought that was pretty cool. It looked really cool. The effects in this movie looked really good. Godzilla looked amazing. They obviously changed some features about him, especially in his face, but they still worked, and it still looked like Godzilla, unlike the '98 remake, where it looked nothing like Godzilla. Stuff like the roar, everything was awesome. I also didn't mind the other monsters in this movie. I don't think this is really much of a spoiler, but I think everybody's figured this out. But there are other monsters in this movie. Actually, it's the same monster, but you get a male and a female version of them, and they are fighting Godzilla. It's basically, and this might be sounding like I'm ripping in a movie, but they basically reminded me of like leftover monsters from Pacific Rim. They honestly did. And I love Pacific Rim. I'm not dissing this movie whatsoever. I promise I'm not. But they looked pretty cool. I remember I was trying to think of what these monsters reminded me of. They're called Muta or something like that. That's what their names are in this movie. They're not a monster that have been done before in any other Godzilla movie. They're a completely different creature. They are basically like, they look like the hammerhead. They have like the head of the hammerhead monster from Pacific Rim, but they can fly and they look like insects, giant insects. I guess the best way I could describe them. It's kind of very vague, but that's about as best as I can describe them. They're pretty cool looking. I thought they looked pretty cool. The fight scenes that you get at the end, especially at the end, are definitely worth every fucking penny. They are definitely worth every penny, especially the final battle between Godzilla and the two monsters. It is really awesome. You get to see Godzilla in his glory, just kicking ass, and the final blow that is dealt at the end of this movie is fucking awesome. It's one of the most best geek out moments I've ever seen. I was just giddy as a fucking schoolboy watching the final battle in this film. Especially, I also love the movie's introduction to Godzilla. That made me mark out like crazy. Because honestly, he doesn't show up until like, I think somebody clocked it in to about an hour into this movie. No joke. He doesn't pop up until an hour into this movie. The first monster that's actually introduced isn't Godzilla. It's one of the other creatures, which I thought was really weird. Really thought that was really weird. I also liked the fact that they kept it true to the fact that Godzilla actually is helping the humans. He actually isn't the bad guy in this movie. It is the other monsters that are bad guys. And Godzilla is actually the guy who's trying to help, that is inadvertently helping the humans survive. And that's pretty cool. I like that. That's in the same way, that's in the same style of the old Godzilla films, that Godzilla is actually helping the humans and the humans are cheering on Godzilla. Although the military does try to shoot Godzilla and try to blow him up and stuff like that, they kind of grow to accept him and try to accept his help in defeating these monsters, even though it takes a while. Oh shit! I'm thinking I'm forgetting something else. Also, like the theme about the social commentary this movie has about our reliance on nuclear energy, and nuclear weapons, and uh, technology even is very prevalent in this movie. It's kind of like the original films. Um, it basically, these monsters, as you find out for the film, uh, are able to live, um, come out on our planet, basically because it's so radioactive. Back in the They lived all the way back in the day. They explained that they lived all the way to back in the day when the dinosaurs roamed the Earth, and that was when the Earth was radioactive. But since our Earth is now so radioactive again, they can walk among us again. And that's pretty cool. I like that. And it's, a social commentary about our society. And that was something that was prevalent in the first film. And that's, it staying pretty damn true, in my opinion, to the original. I mean, this is about as close as a remake as you'll get for a Godzilla film, in my opinion. I guess I should get into some of the negatives. If you haven't noticed, I didn't talk much about the actors in this movie. Actually, I haven't talked about any of the actors in this movie so far. And that is because, honestly, as much as the acting in this movie is not bad at all, honestly, I think the acting in this movie is somewhat better than a lot of the original films. The actors in this movie are just really, honestly, the human characters in this movie are just honestly forgettable. Really are. Even though the actors in this movie are fucking really good in this film. Especially Bryan Cranston. This movie started out very well, in the fact that I thought Bryan Cranston was going to be the lead in this movie. It starts out focusing mostly on him, honestly, and I was like, alright, if this movie's going to be focusing on the story of Bryan Cranston throughout the whole film, I could get behind that. I really could. And then, spoiler alert, 30 minutes into this movie, Bryan Cranston dies. And I was like, fuck. I was sitting there like, oh, fuck me. So, then, I'm trying to make sure I get the kid's name right. Aaron Taylor Johnson, the kid who played Kick-Ass in the movie Kick-Ass. He becomes the lead role in this film. He's the lead role in this film throughout the whole film. Honestly, he's more of a lead than Godzilla is. He has more screen time than Godzilla is, and that is kind of a problem. But he's not bad in this movie, he isn't, but he's just not very memorable. You also have people like Elizabeth Olsen, who, who's a really talented actress who, while she is really good in this movie, she's also forgettable too. She's just there as the worried wife that is at home, that is the worried wife of Aaron Taylor Johnson. And that's it. That's basically it. She's taking care of their kid. That girl's going to go places, I'll tell you that. That girl is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with in the future. But yeah, like I said, I'm not saying that the acting was horrible or anything like that. I'm not saying that the stuff with the humans was boring at all or anything like that. Completely boring and uninteresting. Honestly, this movie was a quick sit. Like, I checked my clock, about an hour into this movie, and, I went, holy shit, this movie is already an hour through? I felt like this movie, I thought if I checked my clock, it was going to be, 40 minutes. And I was already in, an hour and a half of this movie. I'm like, damn, this movie's going by fast. But half the time, and this is something, and this is also kind of reminding me of the original films also, and the fact that, like the original films, and I think people hold the original films in really high regard, and they forget sometimes that those movies are not exactly flawless, and the fact that, honestly, the human storylines in the original films were less interesting than the monsters fighting, and honestly, I remember watching those films when I was little and really being bored until the Godzilla and the other monsters popped up, and that was that was when the movie got interesting. And honestly, I do think storylines in this movie were somewhat a lot better than some of the other movies, the previous movies, and a lot more interesting. Maybe that's just me. I also, you got people like Ken Watanabe who is just there to spout exposition, and that's it. He just tells the origin story of Godzilla, and that's it. Seriously, that's it. And I mean, at least they got a Japanese actor who's as credible as he is. I really like him as an actor. I always have. Goddamn. I do like the fact that I think I think some of the logic in this movie is a little iffy here and there, but this is also a movie I can forgive, especially since this is a movie about a giant lizard named Godzilla fighting two flying creatures in a city. Like the fact that apparently the government has been covering this up, covering up the existence of Godzilla since like 1950s, and they've been doing it pretty well. I'm pretty certain at one point that somebody would have figured that fucking out. I mean, it would have been really hard to cover that up all those years, honestly. I don't know. If you really think about it, now this is kind of getting nitpicking, really. But, he, like, the one thing that did kind of make me kind of, like, sit there and go, really? Is the fact that at the end of the movie, they figure out that in order to destroy the monsters, Godzilla included, they need to basically nuke them. Basically, these monsters are the monsters are attracted to radiation, so they figure that they're gonna lure them to an atomic bomb, and basically when they get near it, they're gonna blow it up. Yeah, it's basically their plan, and they're gonna do it on the East Coast or on the West Coast, and basically all of San Francisco is gonna get the aftershock of that, or is gonna get blasted away with radiation. Honestly, and that's kind of bothersome. Like, really, that's your idea? Like, you're just gonna obviously destroy a pretty well-known city and possibly kill millions of people. I mean, it's a pretty bad idea, but whatever. And also, I will say, I will give them credit in the fact that kind of does come into play, that their plan does backfire towards the end of the movie. That plan does backfire, and it kind of does end up playing into the whole theme of our reliance on nuclear weapons and stuff like that. In the end, I thought that storyline, I mean, it started to make a little bit more sense. But what else am I going to talk about here? Yeah, I'm trying to think of something else I'm forgetting. I guess there's not much else, honestly. I don't want to spoil too much about this movie. It is fucking awesome. You're a Godzilla fan. I know it sounds like I'm saying a lot more negative about it than positive. Honestly, once it gets... even if you can get past the human stuff, the human storylines, the payoff with the monsters is pretty awesome. I will say that it did drive me nuts, like, throughout the film, where they would, like, this is how, like, they're, like, the battle scenes would progress. Like, you would get, the monsters would come down, like, the other flying monsters would come down, and then Godzilla would come, and the scene would end. And that would be the end of it. And you're like, well, what the fuck? Like, it happens, like, maybe an hour into that movie, like, an hour into the movie when you're first introduced to Godzilla, and I thought, oh, well, they're going to probably just, like, tease us a little bit until the end. until we actually get the whole fight between Godzilla and these two monsters. But even towards the end, it continues to do that. Like, it'll show like a snippet of the monsters fighting, and then cut to what Aaron Taylor Johnson's doing, and then cut back to Godzilla, and you're like, just stay in a fucking with Godzilla and the monsters. That did drive me nuts. Like, I was like, am I not gonna see the whole fight? And honestly, the payoff is pretty awesome. You do get an awesome payoff with the monsters and Godzilla fighting. It is pretty awesome. It looks really good, and honestly, this movie isn't boring at all. It is a fun sit. And I feel like I'm saying a lot more negative about it than positive, and I don't mean to sound like that, because the movie overall is fun. It is a fun movie. It's exactly what I wanted a Godzilla movie to be. And I could see people being bothered by it or not liking it, and the fact that Godzilla don't pop up until an hour into the movie. I could see that being a problem. I could probably see people having problems with the acting in this movie, which I thought was fine. But I had, like I said, overall the movie was a fun sit. I had fun. I was giddy for most of it. I was geeking out. I was in a crowd with a lot of Godzilla geeks. There was a few people with Godzilla t-shirts on. That was kind of funny. Also, I forgot to mention, there was one nod that I caught to the original series that I think a lot of people probably would miss. It's a blink and you'll miss it scene. It's when Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson are going back to their old house, and the camera pans over like to like an aquarium, pans by an aquarium, and at the bottom of the aquarium on duct tape, like, you don't see what was in this aquarium, but at the bottom of the duct tape it has like what I would guess is the name of the creature that was in this aquarium. And if you blink and you'll miss it moment, you see the words Mothra pop up, and I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. I was like, are they hinting maybe that they'll do a new Mothra or something like that? But they don't. Also, don't stay during the end. I stayed at the end of the credits to see if there was anything extra, but there wasn't. I was hoping maybe there would be, but there wasn't. I heard the director say he kind of made this going into this movie. He made this just maybe as a standalone movie, and that's it. I hope there's more movies. And the best case scenario is this is introducing a whole new generation to Godzilla. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And maybe kids will maybe watch this and go, I'm gonna watch the old ones. Hopefully, they haven't seen them already. Yeah, like I said, go see this. Go see this movie. If you're a Godzilla fan, I would think you'd be satisfied enough. But I did get a couple new trailers. I did write them down. The new trailers I got. Hold on, give me a second here. I got Into the Storm, which basically looks like Twister 2. I don't know what the fuck is, other than all I know in this trailer is from this trailer is that it's a movie about tornadoes. That's it. It's a disaster movie with tornadoes, so it's Twister 2. And that's, like I said, that's basically all I can tell you about this movie from the trailer. And it didn't look that bad. I did like the trailer for this movie, like, in the fact that it would say, this is the sound that you hear during danger or something like that. And all you hear is, like, alarms going off and the sound of chaos, and the screen is just pitch black while you're hearing all this noises. That was kind of cool. But the trailer that I definitely was excited to be getting was this was a surprise trailer. I didn't know this was going to be along with Godzilla. Is Interstellar, the new Christopher Nolan film, with Matt McConaughey, and this movie honestly looks like it has a lot going on in this movie. It really does. Wow, what a shock! Christopher Nolan has a movie that has a hell lot going on. I don't know how long this movie's gonna be, because this fucking even the trailers felt very long. This movie's got Matt McConaughey is a fired engineer who lives on a farm with his two daughters, and he's having having a real bad time trying to find a job, and he apparently somewhere in the midst of this the world is coming to an end from what I can gather, and this movie seems like it's going to be a very eco-friendly movie. And they decide that there's going to be a space mission that sends people out into space to see if there's any other place for humans to live, so that they can send humans out there. So they send Matt McConaughey. That's all I got from that. And apparently there's a wormhole or something like that involved in here. I don't know what's going to happen, but it looks pretty. It looks pretty. It looks like a good Nolan film. Another good Nolan film. And Matt McConaughey's at a career high. And this looks like he's going to probably try to go for another Oscar. So, fine by me. I was sold just with Nolan directing, but then you add Matt McConaughey. I'm there. It's coming out in November. It looks really good. That's it. I definitely go see Godzilla. I'll be back with my review for $1 Million